The clock struck 12. A haunting silence engulfed the Park mansion. But this wasn't the silence of peace. It was the suffocating stillness that precedes a storm. YN sat on the edge of the massive king-size bed in her new room. She was still wearing the heavy white wedding gown from the ceremony a few hours ago. But instead of a bride's radiant glow, her face bore a deathly pallor. The door swung open with a violent thud, and JIMIN stormed in. He loosened his tie and threw his coat onto the sofa. His face was flushed with rage, and his eyes held nothing but pure, unadulterated hatred. So, Park YN, how does it feel to become Mrs. Park after being a murderer? JIMIN's voice was laced with venom. YN raised her trembling eyes, her voice barely a whisper. JIMIN, I didn't do anything. I was trying to save Minna. I didn't push her. Shut up, JIMIN roared, lunging forward to grab her hair in a tight grip. YN gasped as a sharp pain shot through her scalp. Don't you dare utter my sister's name with your filthy mouth. You snatched her away from me, Y/N. I still see her innocent face every time I close my eyes, the way she fell from that building. And you? You stood there watching the show. No, JIMIN, you're misunderstanding. Please. Ya/N began to sob, the tears blurring her vision. JIMIN jerked her head back and threw her onto the cold floor. I/N's knee hit the ground hard, but JIMIN didn't flinch. He leaned down, gripping her chin so tightly it bruised. I didn't marry you because I love you. I married you so I could make you feel the sting of death every single day, every single moment. You will only leave this house when your coffin does. That night, JIMIN showed no mercy. He forced himself upon her, physical intimacy, but there was no warmth, no love, only the cold desire for revenge. Y/N cried and begged him to stop, but JIMIN's heart was a fortress of stone. To him, Y/N wasn't a human being. She was merely the culprit behind his sister's death, a vessel for his rage. The morning light filtered through the heavy curtains of the master bedroom, but it brought no warmth to Y/N. She lay on the floor, her body aching from the previous night. Scattered around her were the shredded remnants of her white wedding gown, the dress JIMIN had ripped apart in a fit of rage. She forced herself to stand, her legs trembling. She went to the wardrobe and pulled out a simple light blue dress. It was a modest dress that reached her knees, but its short sleeves couldn't hide the dark purple bruises blooming on her arms. Vivid marks of JIMIN's ownership. JIMIN had given strict orders to the servants. No one helps her. She will do every chore in this house alone. E/N spent the entire day in a blur of exhaustion. She scrubbed the floors, moved heavy furniture, and washed piles of laundry until her palms were raw and red. Every time she bent down, a sharp pain shot through her body, reminding her of the monster she was married to. At 8 p.m, the sound of laughter echoed in the hallway. JIMIN hadn't come home alone. He had brought the other members, Namjoon, Jin, Yoongi, Hoseok, Taehyung, and Jungkook. Y/N, get out here and serve drinks. JIMIN's voice thundered through the mansion. E/N walked into the living room, looking pale and exhausted. Her blue dress was slightly stained from the day's work. Jungkook stood up the moment he saw her, his eyes wide with shock. Nuna, what happened to you? Why do you look so weak? JIMIN grabbed Jungkook's shoulder and forced him back onto the sofa with a chilling laugh. Don't be fooled by her face, Jungkook. This is what a murderer looks like when she finally has to pay for her sins. JIMIN, stop it, Namjoon said sternly. She is your wife, not a criminal. JIMIN didn't listen. As YN was serving coffee, her hands shook from pure fatigue. A few drops of coffee spilled onto the expensive marble table. Silence. JIMIN stood up slowly. He grabbed YN's arm so hard she let out a cry of pain. Before anyone could react, he picked up a jug of water from the table and poured it entirely over YN's head. The cold water drenched her, making the blue dress cling to her shivering body, revealing the bruises on her shoulders. JIMIN, are you crazy? Taehyung yelled, stepping forward, but JIMIN's gaze stopped him. Stay out of this. Y/N. Get on your knees and clean this mess with your hands. Now? With tears streaming down her face and mixing with the water, Y/N knelt on the floor in front of the men who used to admire her. She wiped the floor with her bare hands, feeling every bit of her dignity crumble. Once the members left, Jimin's rage reached a boiling point. He dragged Y/N by her hair back into the master bedroom and slammed the door shut. You enjoyed that, didn't you? Trying to make my friends feel sorry for you. He threw her onto the bed with such force that her head hit the headboard. No, Jimin. Please. I'm so tired. Please leave me alone today. Y/N sobbed, crawling to the corner of the bed. Tired? The night has just begun. Jimin showed no mercy. He was rude and forceful, using her body only to vent the anger he felt for his sister's death. He ignored her screams and her pleas for him to stop. For him, this wasn't intimacy, it was a punishment. When he was done, he pushed her off the bed like she was nothing and went to take a shower, leaving her broken on the cold floor. Days turned into weeks, but the atmosphere inside the Park mansion remained suffocating. For Y/N, time was no longer measured in hours, but in the new bruises that appeared on her skin. Jimin's violence had become a daily nightmare. He would strike her for the smallest things. A misplaced item, a meal that was a minute late, or simply because the sight of her reminded him of his grief. The nights were even more terrifying. He continued to be forceful and cold, treating her body like an object to be used and discarded. Y/N lived in a constant state of fear, her spirit slowly breaking under his relentless cruelty. One afternoon, while scrubbing the grand staircase, Y/N felt a sudden wave of dizziness. Her head spun, and she had to grip the railing to keep from collapsing. For the past week, she'd been feeling nauseous every morning, and her body felt strangely different. With trembling hands, she used a test kit she had secretly managed to get. When she saw the 2 pink lines, her heart stopped. For the first time in months, a tiny, fragile smile touched her lips. A baby, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears of joy. My baby. Maybe you are the miracle I've been praying for. Maybe your father will finally look at me with love instead of hate when he finds out about you. Y/N decided that tonight would be the night she told him. She truly believed that the news of a child would melt Jimin's frozen heart. Despite her exhaustion, she spent hours in the kitchen preparing his favorite meal, kimchi fried rice and spicy stew. She carefully set the table, ensuring everything was perfect. She even found a small box and placed a pair of tiny white socks inside. She sat at the table, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and terror, watching the clock as the minutes ticked toward his arrival. At 9 p.m., the sound of Jimin's car pulled into the driveway. Y/N stood up, smoothing her dress and taking a deep breath. She touched her stomach lightly, seeking courage from the tiny life inside her. But the moment the front door slammed open, her hope withered. Jimin didn't just walk in, he stormed in. His tie was undone, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were dark with a rage more intense than she had ever seen. He kicked a chair out of his way, the loud crash echoing through the house. Jimin, you're home, Y/N said, her voice shaking. I made your favorite dinner. I have something very important to tell you. Jimin turned to her, his face contorted with malice. To hell with your dinner, and to hell with whatever you want to tell me. He marched toward her, his heavy footsteps sounding like a death knell. He didn't see the love in her eyes or the effort she'd put into the meal. He only saw the woman he blamed for his misery. Jimin, please. Just listen to me for 1 minute, she begged, clutching the small box in her hand. I am sick of your voice, Jimin roared. He reached the table and, in one swift, violent motion, he swiped his arm across it, sending the plates, the food, and the glasses crashing to the floor in a spray of ceramic and broth. YN stepped back, her face pale with terror. The beautiful evening she had planned was destroyed in an instant, and looking at the fire in Jimin's eyes, she realized that tonight was not going to be the night of her salvation. It was going to be her worst nightmare.